Welcome everybody back to the Mids Watch. Again, we're doing a nice little chill vibe. You're probably catching this about midnight when it's out. I don't know what's playing in the background, but it's something going to be chill, something relaxed. And I am bringing up some old jacktenofhearts married red pill stuff. This one's a bit of a double header, and I love it. It's honestly my favorite map. If you don't know what a map is, it's a male action plan. It was something developed by a red-pilled author, one of the first married red pill guys actually, Athol K. He was a nurse who got a marriage license, and then thing was on the rocks. We kind of adapted it more following a lot of the red pill stuff. At the time, the big guys in the area were Dal Rock, Ian Ironwood. I think Rollo was still like a very, very minor player back then. But so he developed something called the male action plan. The idea is if your marriage sucks and your sex life is lackluster, what do you do to build it up from there? And it's funny because, and this is kind of get to the point of the thing here about letting girls into the locker room, either within the red pilled space in general or even within your own map, because his wife was eventually brought in because, hey, my marriage is great now. My wife is treated me wonderful. Why wouldn't I reward her? Come on into this space. It worked for us. It can work for everybody else. But the problem is that girls kind of screw it up. And his book title shows you exactly like the progress this thing will make when you bring your girl into it. This is why you don't try and red pill your girlfriend or your wife. You just do your thing. It went from the male action plan to the male attraction plan and then the mindful attraction plan. So you can see like this weird dynamic where it first lost the action. So it was no longer about action. It was about being mindful and attractive. And then the second part, they just got rid of male in the map. So we honestly got to come up with a better name for it, but it's the one that's been around for a while. So it's the one I tend to use, just male action plan map. Although somebody told me on Twitter once that apparently some like NAMBLA organization also has a map, which has some Chris Hansen vibes to it. So I have a feeling this is going to come back to bite you in the ass, but whatever. Anyways, it's going to be a great field report from one of my favorite guys in the married red pill space. It's somebody nobody has ever heard of, other than with the exception of like Rule Zero Dad, S-Curve Much, or Wine More Please, which you may or may not have seen on this channel or others on Twitter and on YouTube. The Litz. Now, the Litz was the reason I liked his field report. Actually, you know what? We'll get into that in a second. The reason I love the Litz's field reports is he didn't have an ego on this. He had like zero ego. And it sounds weird, like why wouldn't he come in without an ego? Because everybody, you're in a sexless marriage or your wife won't touch you. Why would you have ego? You would be absolutely surprised. Like most guys come in here and their lackluster relationship, it's all about her. She did this, she did that, she screwed up this, she screwed up that. I almost want to say he's an engineer in his 40s. I don't know what his job is. He never talks about it, which doesn't really matter, but one of those kind of jobs. He's definitely in his late 40s, and he just stuck to it. For him, it was just like a job. You show up to your job, you punch in, you punch out, you reflect. I mean, it's something that's really been missing. Like a lot of you guys in the comments have been saying this, where, hey man, how come back in the 2015 or 2016, there was all these guys, super self-reflective. They wanted to learn. They weren't afraid to make mistakes. They weren't afraid to talk about their mistakes. And it's just gone. Now it's a bunch of people asking for advice and a bunch of dudes who are like acting like authorities telling them to. And it's just like, this is why. It's not the subreddit's fault that people are crap. It's that people just don't take an interest in learning their own thing via experiment anymore. Now, granted, it's because it was generally a smaller place, and when places are smaller, they usually get people that are more interested in a topic. You know, like I guess I'll use IQ in this example because I can't think of a better one. When you get a brand new field of study or scientific one, you get a bunch of like super high IQ guys because they're rather bored with their, physics and math and whatever. So they go to this new thing. Oh, this is awesome. But as you grow its numbers, you automatically regress to the mean. So anyways, enough rambling here. I've said like 5 minutes and nothing about the lits. So I'll just start getting into it. And then follow it up with the Jack 10 piece there with a little bit of background for you guys. He's been in, at this point, he was in for 2 months. 2 months out of, I think it was like 2.5 years, 3 years before it finally clicked for him. And he says, and before that, I was rebelling against something I did not know what to call. Today I know it's being a beta bitch, which, whatever. Term is what it is. You know me, I hate beta and alpha are not archetypes, they're behavior sets, but I'm not going to quibble over that. To him, this year has been better in the sack quality-wise, and as for quantity, we were about once a month at ovulation time, which is good if you consider I arrived here from a dead bedroom. Fun fact on that. Actually, you know what? I'll get to that in a second. Fun fact on this. Almost everybody who was in a dead bedroom, like there was a subreddit specifically about dead bedrooms. And it was just people complaining that their wife wouldn't have sex with them and that somebody would like blame it on, low libido, like it was a genetic disorder. And, oh, okay, that feels good. Let's cry about it. Like literally testicular cancer meetings from Fight Club. Biggest feeder sub, because most of these guys were like, oh my God, this is depressing. So I gotta get out of here. And every now and then some red pill guy would come in, say some harsh advice that somebody needed to say. The mods would ban them. They would have like a post come out right afterwards. Red pill is bad and evil, just so you know, so go back to not having sex. It was absolutely ridiculous. So that's where he came in here. And then on this part of his map, I believe he was at active dread, which 1 to 5 are mostly like self-improvement things, like removing all the unattractive things. And then 6 to 12, anyways, it's a very crude system, but it's enough to get the ideas there. But that's when you start gaming, being attractive. Catch and release is a big one. This is kind of where he's at now. So he continues on saying his SMV is climbing. He's 44, turned gray very early in life. Now he's paying dividends. His peers are also turning gray, but they have receding hairlines. Awesome. His SMV is higher than average for his social circle and peers. And he thinks he might even be hotter than his significant other, which if he's in shape and they're in their mid 40s, of course, it's just, that's how the wall works. But that's kind of like the key for women. And it's something I wish guys like Kevin Samuels would actually say, because they're just too busy chastising girls for being thoughts. And in reality, what they want is like, look, you're going to get older. And then as you get older, your looks are going to fade faster than you think. The best makeup and the best long-term advice I can give you is get a man hooked on you as hot as you can be. Because once you get older and those looks start to fade, guys are the aspirational lovers. We don't actually see the wrinkles and any of the sagging or the couple extra baby pounds or all that shit. Guys still see that like hot 19-year-old they picked up at the bar. And so you're going to see, and you see all these stories. Girls love clapping about that. I dated this girl since high school, and even though she's 75 now, she still looks like that teenager to me. And guys truly believe it. Like, our ability to self-deceive ourselves actually works out in women's favor. And all they have to do is hook us when they're at their best. But, he doesn't do that, so here we are. Litz himself pulled 2 numbers. One was late 20s, one was mid 40s. The younger one helped him out at the cell phone shop, wrote her number on the tail slip. Call me if you need anything. I first thought it was just good service, but she kept flirting back, and I repeated I should call above and beyond the call of duty, I would say. So even he's aware. It's like, and it's the rule we had is like, you don't hit on the waitress. Those aren't displays of higher value because they're kind of forced to be polite with you. But if the waitress flirts with you, then that's fine. It's kind of where you want to be with active dread. You want people actively flirting with you in front of the wife, not you actively and flirting with other people in front of the wife. In that way, it's a good metric on whether you're actually improving or you're just bullshitting yourself. He goes on to the other lady had an identical car, parked next to his at the mall. He made a witty comment and we stood chatting about 2 minutes in the parking lot. I took her number To call her if I want to sell mine. I have an auto. She has a stick and she's looking for an auto. My wife wasn't there, but it gives me the confidence to say I'm not a total chump. Yeah. And again, small victories, man. Just as you're married, not being so afraid of it being considered cheating that you can flirt with another person, huge step towards being your mental point of origin. Like there's just too many guys who think, well, now I'm in a relationship. I need to be as ugly and avoidant as possible to other girls. And we're not talking Me Too, where you have to open door meetings and no dinners with coworkers because you don't want to get canceled. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just the ability to open up a conversation with a perfect stranger, flirt a little bit, maybe get a phone number. I don't care if you throw it in the trash out or whatever when you're done, or you follow through with it. It's like the saying goes, your wife gets first crack at your libido. She doesn't get sole custody. Take it, do with that what you will. Wife wasn't with him. He is the confidence. His wife's friend walked up to him over the weekend and wanted to feel his biceps in front of the wife and the husband. She commented his biceps were hard. And in the past, other friends of ours have flirted with me, not something new. Now he's done with the bragging. And he says these flirtations and changes to my image have so far not had much effect. When will she start jumping my bones? Now I suspect when she feels threatened, she hunkers down and hopes for the best. I have noted this behavior with her before, and I see it very clearly in her parents. Their attitude is to put your head in the sand, pray, and hope for the best. They are not proactive people. Could it be a higher SMV has no effect, or is my marriage so busted it has no effect? The next part is super interesting. I know how this story ends, so I'm not going to spoil it here. We're just going to deal with what's right in front of us here. It's a good story, by the way. I should honestly, the way I'm doing like Royce and Jack Ten of Hearts, I should almost do something on the Litz. I could probably write a book on his map. Maybe that'll be the dread thing. Just steal all his posts and throw it on a book. So what he's kind of hinting at here, it's something later on we kind of came up with, was the avoidant attachment styles. And in this case, specifically avoidant attachment style. It makes sense because he's talking about how her parents were very avoidant attachment. It's something you can look it up, but the key to it is there's, There's 3 types. There's avoidant attachment. Now I'm going to screw up the name, so I'm not even going to try. Avoidance is the one I know that's the name. The second one is like a comfortable attachment. And the third one is some weird one. It's not really important for here, but the easy way to conceptualize it is when you're a 4-year-old kid, maybe your best friend's kid walks up to you. Are they generally pretty friendly, love to see hi, climb all over you? Or are they the kind of friend that hides behind mom whenever he's like a stranger or somebody new walks in the room? That tends to give you which one they are, if that helps you there. With the anxious avoidant, they tend to be very bad in these situations, and they literally do put their head in the sand. It's a new thing, and even though this was 5 years ago, we've only just begun to have in the last year some people navigating the avoidant attachment styles. Because the first bit was absolutely horrific. It was this guy, a lawyer, and he was like basically conditioning his wife not to flinch at his touch, and it was like the worst, least attractive thing ever. Like he was trying to act like she had PTSD for their sex life, which was, I mean, it might not be wrong. Like there's a great post by Archwinger, another red pill veteran, where he talks about, I'm so going to get YouTube for this one, but every unhappy wife is a rape victim. He makes the case that when a girl's not sexually aroused by her man, there's no genuine desire, it triggers the same part of her brain that a sexual assault would do. And so the idea of just, do your duty and sleep with your man, you're basically tapping into the same resource that somebody's like, okay, go in the woods and get struggle hugged, But anyways, we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to get into the Jack Ten of Hearts stuff. That was actually the whole point of this, and I'm 14 minutes in, and I only now just got to the point of this damn video. So hold on to your butts, guys. Stop putting your tit smudges on my damn table, woman. I got my mom coming over to visit on Sunday. Jack starts with a couple points to this. He goes from his thing. He notices the hunkering down, hope for the best, anxious avoidance stuff. And he references hamster maze. And it looks like her typical reaction that happens when is to freeze and do nothing. It's a long story. I mean, I guess I can briefly get into it, but the idea of the hamster is a girl who is like building her narrative. Like I talk about mental models all the time, the narratives that we use to anchor our decisions. Well, the hamster is the girl's propensity to build the story after the fact. Like something happens, they feel a certain way, and then they start running their mouth until a story comes around it. This is kind of one of those things from an advanced relationship standpoint. If you can get ahead of these narratives and maybe guide them to a way you like, it can make things so much easier for you. And that's kind of how Jack talks about the hamster maze. It starts from scarcity to loss aversion to anxiety, then anxiety reducing behavior, rinse and repeat. And then the idea there is for most people who are very anxious, that's tend to be what they do. They're worried about losing something that they think is scarce and not going to come back. They develop an anxiety. The anxiety reducing behavior in this case is avoidance. And then you just constantly repeat that. And that's a maze because it just recycles, and the person gets more and more distant as the relationship breaks. Now, there's two thoughts to this. One, it's not your job to fix other people. So at this point, you should kind of be planning your exit. Perfect strategy. Can't fault it. It honestly would be my preference. But guys, you know, we're romantics. He's been with her for like 15, 16 years and he's doing his thing. So give it a good college try. Can't fault him for that. But the idea of this is if you want them to lead, you have to kind of get ahead of these narratives. And that's the gist behind the hamster maze. It's like, again, proto anxious attachment, proto frame. It's a whole thing on its own. And I'm kind of getting off the point right now, but he does mention too, in a different thing he's quoting here, 2 days later, he gets an email about her wanting to divorce and me not respecting her, just like everybody here predicts they'll do when the hamster run. Today, all is forgotten and she just smiles. I be quiet and I don't talk about the letter. And this is kind of where Jack wanted to focus on here, was about STFU, or shut the hell up. It's never a bad idea, but it doesn't mean it's always the optimal choice either. Now, in this case, yes, if somebody's writing you a letter full of name calling and getting their feelings down on paper, just don't read it. Like, if it's important, they can tell you face to face important. And most of the time, people are much braver and more adversarial in written form than they are in person. So if you want to bring this to a head, if they don't have the gumption to say it to your face, chances are they don't really believe it themselves. And it goes a long way into getting control of the narrative here. She's going to feel what she feels, but a lot of the time, the narrative of how she feels will be stronger than what's actually happened. Because, I mean, it's feelings. Of course, it's perception. And he goes, and Jack uses an example here for sports. Think about sports. There's always some fundamental advice constantly repeated, but at the higher levels, the elite athletes break that advice all the time. Think about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's skyhook or Magic Johnson's no-look passes. I don't know if anybody here plays basketball or not. I don't get the references, but I'm sure they make sense. Anyways, I'm sure that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was told, as a low-post player, you always go hard to the basket, as often as like people here are told to shut the fuck up, and yet he developed his own approach that was superior to that. If you want some behavioral changes in your wife, resulting STFU 100% of the time is not going to cut it, because her email to you isn't just hunkering down, she's actually engaging. Again, Jack and I totally disagreed on this one. I think it's a way of creating some emotional distance. Now, for what reason, whatever. Her hamster's trying to run through the maze and get out. So she's trying to build a narrative around this. And it's mostly just running in the same loop as hamsters do, but these are opportune times to nudge it in the right direction. And then he quotes again how Liz was talking about how the year was getting better. And he goes, even in your pre-red pill, dead bedroom marriage, were you physically affectionate with your wife? Like, to be honest, I read through your past posts, and now I'm just having a little trouble getting a grasp on her. I'm pretty sure she sounds like somebody who's too anxious or neurotic to enjoy her libido. You had a post where she complained about your demon lust, whatever the hell that means. I think they're Christian. Yeah, and that you were succumbing too often to common vibes and you weren't going to church. This implies some sort of religious conservative background where virgins are ivory pure angels, and by implication, sex is sinful and dirty. I mean, her priest probably gave her some lip service to, oh yeah, Once you get married, though, sex is great, but usually that part of the message is not exactly emphasized. And your own blue pill ways didn't help, obviously, but this would have added to a general tendency for her to be physically distant and sexually withdrawn. It looks like you fed that earlier in your marriage when you were getting shot down so much that it just completely disengaged. So a lot of the marriage hasn't been just devoid of sex, but as a general sense of affection. Now, if that's the case, there's some value in blurring the lines between physical contact and sex. Use more Kino, take showers together, really stop treating sex and intimacy like an act. Stop treating it like the active decision you make that either blocks or allows. Her view is that your desire for sex is an addiction. While that's obviously stupidly misguided, that's what you're dealing with. So take back some control. Initiate every day. Well, stop doing that. Just do it often and just show your OI if you get down. So if she shoots you down, it's whatever. Same way as is advised in the Married Man's Sex Life Primer, but just like shutting the fuck up, you may be ready for some advanced approaches now. Approaches you develop that are specific to you and your marriage. She's your wife, you're the husband, you like to be physically intimate. Sometimes that physical intimacy is expressed like sex. If it's rarely ever expressed as sex, then your marriage is a bad fit and you're better off with somebody who enjoys it as part of it. And she's better off with, I don't know, the fuck knows, some eunuch maybe, but that's not your problem. And I think that's the optimal frame for you and your marriage. This is how you break down the all you want is sex frame that seems insistent on clinging to it and lead her through the hamster maze where she desires sex with you because you both like physical intimacy and sex is nothing more than fun and a natural way to express it. And some closing thoughts. As with everything, this is good and bad advice all in once. Like he's right in the not every touch has to be sexual. Married Man's Sex Life Primer, Athol K, Ironwood all talk about this one. The idea is if every time you're affectionate, you're basically just doing it as a precursor to sex. If the sex is waning, then automatically, as soon as you get affectionate, the other girl starts to get like a married version of anti-slut defense, which obviously not working well. So the idea here is you want to just show that affection and sex are not attached. And this is, again, a much better approach to this. I think he hit on it earlier, like showers together. That's a big one. Lady and I like doing that. It's not because you're not getting blown in the shower every day. Sometimes it's just to get clean. Flirting during the day, ass smacks, all these little things. And at first it's really awkward because they still have that internal thing where like sex is dirty. I'm not attracted to him. As soon as he touches me, he's going to try for sex. So I better automatically shut down. So you can't really expect any kind of feedback mechanism. You just kind of go in, do something. If they give you guff or a cross look or they get a little irritated, you just laugh it off. You just gotta, again, in her mind, this is a big deal. This is like the equivalent, like I said earlier, it's like a struggle hug session. You're like, oh, no, I'm not having that. And it's just, no. You just laugh it off. Because as soon as you start treating that emotional reaction as valid, it becomes real in her mind. So you don't want to do that. And then, I don't know how long this takes. The rule of thumb we always picked, it was an arbitrary number we pulled out of her ass, is for every year in a bad marriage, you take a month to turn this thing around. It's good enough as a fast and loose rule, but in general, you kind of just have to calibrate it on your own. Now, I know it's not very good internet relationship guru advice that do it yourself and see how it goes, but, you didn't join this channel because you wanted to see some asshole talking about 7 steps to win back your wife and step 4 will surprise you. I'm like, yeah, the whole thing's from a single 23-year-old dude who doesn't even have a girlfriend. If all 10 of them would surprise me. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, so the takeaway from this one is these are the kind of problems that guys have in their map. And again, it's less than 6 months for him. Sometimes you have sexual repression. Catholics are big on this, by the way. That's why I think out of all these ones, he's probably a Catholic, not a Protestant. And then one of the worst things you can do is automatically just try to have sex, get shut down, and then detach. That's a very solid plan for a guy who can't handle rejection well. That is not a solid plan for a girl who has to de-churchify her sex drive. again, and you can't make it one of those things like I was talking about with the lawyer guy, where it's like conditioning your wife to your touch by like a 1 second handhold, then a 2 second handhold, then maybe a kiss on the cheeks. Like, that's not it at all. Just go in, do something, go out, treat it as if it's nothing. Because it is nothing. It's a smack on the ass. You do that to your girl all the time and they giggle, or maybe she freaks out, but... And I hate using the idea of desensitization because it's not that. And I wish I could articulate it better, but when you're in situ, you see it for yourself. The one way is like, it's a frame thing for the most part. You're a sexual guy, you're very flirty, you've been married for, and this guy's married for like 20 years and she's still as hot as the day he met her. Of course he's gonna smack her in the ass or go in for a grope every now and again, then just go about his day. It's the same way as like you grab a cup of coffee and take a quick sip on your way out the door kind of thing, right? But what it's not doing, and this is where the Litz found out, he was the first guy to have that 2-year problem where they have like a covert contract, is that he's expecting her to turn around. And that can't be the goal. Whether she reacts well to this or continues to be anxious and avoidant, that's not his problem. His problem here is to fix his behavior to the point where he's openly flirtatious, to the point where he is open with his sexuality a lot. And once he's got that down, once he's got his looks down, once he's got all this stuff down, then he's like, okay, now I'm ready. I can bring anybody I want to in my life who's worth it. And is it this girl or is it a different girl? And then at the end, usually at some point, you'll kind of get an idea whether this one's going well or this one's going poorly. But I mean, at that point, there's no doubt. But even if it doesn't go well, it's like an old saying, and I'll leave you guys on this. The stay plan is the same as the go plan. And it's really the only way you can avoid a very common married red pill covert contract of doing it for her. If I run through all these steps, my wife will start fucking me on the regular. It's like, that's not how it works. We can fix you, or you fix yourself. We can advise you on how to fix yourself. And then when you're fixed, you make those hard decisions. So this one's episode 2 on the Mids Watch. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. And this one, is it possible changes could lead the wife to inaction? Anxious avoidant behavior, with, as always, Jack 10 of Hearts. Thanks guys for tuning in this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, you know the deal. Again, the music, I've put it all in here. It's all Epidemic Sound stuff. I will catch you guys on the next episode. Take care. Cheers.